Hello there, I'm NateFNGreat, and welcome to another edition of, well, that was random. So last week I did do something that was a bit more random because of the fact that I covered 3 different subjects on there. This time around I'm actually going to be covering one subject here. And for a lot of people that have followed me have known the fact that I like to do rebookings, rewrites, such like that. So that's going to be what this episode is all about. And I saved the wrestling bookings for the wrestling show. So I thought to myself, well, what could I really rewrite, or something that I could, redo, something that could be interesting to say the least. And it kind of dawned on me that one thing that I usually nitpick at is the live action movies. Specifically the Disney ones. For those of you that may know, I did do a review on the Lion King movie, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, as well as a couple of others, and also gave my thoughts on a lot of them, about how they have definitely tried to change a bit of what we used to know with the Disney movies, and some have been for the better, while others not so much, to say the least. I mean, with movies that are critically acclaimed like Pete's Dragon, Beauty and the Beast, there's been quite a few movies that have also been either okay, like Maleficent, Cinderella, and then there's some movies that kind of make me a little angry, like Aladdin as well as Lion King. So I thought to myself, well, why should I complain about it? Why don't I just try and rewrite one of those movies? Especially one that's going to be coming up pretty soon. And I thought to myself, well, what would be one that has actually been in Disney's sites for a while and could probably use a little bit of tweaking here and there? And it kind of occurred to me, why not talk about one of the biggest hits of the 90s, one of the biggest hits of the Renaissance of Disney, that being The Little Mermaid. Now I know this might lose my man card, this might not help my situation, but to be honest, this is one of those stories that is very well documented. There's the Disney version, which is nice and happy, but also has its issues. Then there's the original version that can be very whimsical, but also very dark, to say the least. Oh, dear Lord, no. So, I thought to myself, okay, well, what if I tried to recreate this? Because, to be honest, I know that they are definitely at the point of recreating the new Little Mermaid, and apparently there's been some people who have been doing hashtags at one Haley Bailey, or it might be Holly Bailey, I do apologize for if I said the name wrong, for not being my Ariel. Why the hell not? Because she's of different color? Because there's some people that they think that deems to be better in that place? I don't get it. I just... For those that think, hashtag not my Ariel is the way to go, you could stay here in 2020 and just enjoy the pandemic, political pain, and just everything else that was nasty about this year. You can just stay here. For those of you that have an open mind, thank you. So, I've seen a bit of the casting for this. A couple of characters on here that are going to be used are going to be Scuttle, voiced by Awkwafina, who, in all honesty, I think Awkwafina could do a great job at that. I think that Awkwafina is one of those people who can be very much entertaining. She can be very much just delightful. And to be honest, I think she just fits that role very well. Now, Melissa McCarthy, she would be playing the role of Ursula, which, to be honest, as long as she doesn't do too goofy, then she should be fine. Which I shouldn't really say, be too hard on her, because she has done some serious roles. So she definitely probably could play the role of Ursula very well. Now, that being said, though, what about the story itself? Well, for a lot of people, it's probably going to be a rehash of what we know from the original Little Mermaid. But I thought to myself, well, in the words of one Brit, let me have a go. So, it's... okay. So, when it comes to this movie, it is going to be very important to realize that there are going to be people that are going to be mad no matter what. And there's going to be people who are going to accept this no matter what. So, taking casting out of this, I definitely will say this, that if they didn't have a casting deal, I would have had Mara Wilson playing the role of Ursula, because I think she kind of fits the mold a little bit more. I think that she probably could do the character a bit more justice, but that is just me. So let's just get into the story of itself. First of all, definitely need to give a couple people more depth. And what I mean by that is, first of all, definitely give Ursula a bit more time. So, what I mean by that is definitely create her motivation, make it more well developed, make it more something that either somebody can relate to or that they can understand. But you can obviously see the fact that when she went wrong is where things are going to get a little bit dicey, because we've seen what she's like in The Little Mermaid, and it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you kind of get where she's coming from, but at the same time, you don't. You just like you like the charm about her, but you just don't like the actions of her. You know what I mean? So, yes, give her a little bit more background. Give her a bit more to work with to really develop the story a bit more. And one thing that actually might be a risk, but at the same time, I'm willing to at least take a chance on this, is having her have a family tie with King Triton as well as the family. Maybe she's a long-lost sister of King Triton. Have that connection to where there's a point where, Triton basically is saying, no, you're no family member. You're not my sister anymore. That kind of deal. Because nothing is more heart-wrenching than having to just getting rid of somebody who you consider family, who you grew up with, who you just, whether it's idolized or not, just being that person that has to say, we can't do this, we can't have this in our family anymore, we can't have this person. It's one of those things that creates emotion. It also creates risk, and it definitely adds more depth to the characters themselves. And to be honest, it's kind of one of those things where, she gets banished. You understand why she's mad, but at the same time, you think, maybe they had a right to doing this. Another thing that I think would be kind of interesting is that we do see Ursula playing into Triton's head a little bit more. Now, what I mean by that is that some of the things that she says kind of sticks around with him for the remainder of the movie. What I mean is there can be a situation where she is the one who basically puts it in Triton's head that humans are evil. And the one example that she'll always use is the fact that she said, look at what they did with your wife. And to be honest, this is where I'm going to play a little bit of the origin story that they had with the Little Mermaid Ariel's origin, is where they kind of showed that deal where Ariel's mother was killed off, and I would actually have the reason she was killed off be because of Ursula. Maybe she creates something to where the humans are chasing after her, but then they end up going after Ariel. And this is where it's going to probably be a little bit controversial, but who would I have playing the role of the mother? I would have Jodie Benson playing that. It is kind of one of those things where it is a nice little nod. It gives a little bit of nostalgia. I think she would play that role very well. She's just got that mothering feel about her. It just would work out perfectly, in my opinion. So I would have her playing the role in that. She's kind of the one that keeps, Triton at bay. She's kind of the voice of reason. And obviously, without that voice of reason, he can be a bit more stern. He can be a bit more hard-headed, very hard to convince. That kind of deal. It is kind of one of those things where you do see that human change within that. But obviously, in this case, it's a mermaid, or merman, or mer person. I don't know. So that is where I would have that. Now, with Ursula, it's obvious that she wants to become ruler, and it's kind of one of those things where she's kind of picking people off one by one. She takes out the queen, now she's going to take out the king and take that spot because of the fact that, without really much of an heir, she would basically take over. But a lot of people will obviously say, well, what about the daughters? What about that? Yes, so we might fall into a situation where it may go into the whole, Lion King deal, where she basically is just picking off family members one by one, and she's basically trying to make sure that she's the only one that can rule the kingdom. But I don't know if I want to go too far into that. I just think that it's one of those situations where, the daughters are kind of still young, and they're still not going to know any better. So instead, Ursula would basically take over. And honestly, I would love to see there be a huge climax between Ursula and King Triton, because Triton finds out that Ursula has been using magic. She's been using this to kind of, make herself not only more stronger, but it's one of those things where it's black magic that unfortunately is not allowed in the kingdom. So we have that fight, and to be honest, I would also have it end where she basically is turned into that squid form. Now, because it is one of those things where it feels like it's her true self, instead of being the mermaid that we thought she was, turns into that, half person, half octopus deal. She gets banished, and she was vowing for revenge, and maybe even like near when she's leaving, she's like, oh, I'm going to get my revenge, you poor, unfortunate souls. So, something like that. And obviously that seems a little force-fed, but it can work because it seems a bit natural. Now, another thing that can happen here with this movie is definitely giving Ariel a bit more depth. Because when you kind of look at how she is portrayed in the original, she definitely has her moments where she can be a bit of an airhead. Now, that's not to say that I'm trying to sound like a jerk, but at the same time, you kind of look at her story. She knows that it's dangerous to talk to, certain humans, but she tries anyway. And she ends up being kind of one of those people that gets her way in the end, even though she goes against her father's will, and she changes herself into a human through Ursula, and then she, and then she kind of turns back into the mermaid, and she forces her father. She's basically the reason why her father becomes a, poor unfortunate soul creature. Gosh, I don't even know what to even call them. And she kind of doesn't really do too much in the final climax, and then she gets what she wants. Anyway, I think that you could still have more depth with that. Maybe have more, for her, have more reason for her to want to be, fascinated by humans. Really kind of embellish that a little bit, evolve that a little bit more. Just giving that opportunity to really make that character more relatable, more understandable, to where, you have that, kid that kind of can relate and be like, yeah, I would be curious too. Because that's what makes these Disney movies great, is that you can relate to these characters and you could think, oh yeah, I would totally do that, and blah, blah, blah. So that is just my opinion. Now, when I mentioned some of the characters that could be, brought into this, I did mention with Awkwafina playing the role of Scuttle. That is one of those things that I would honestly keep. Scuttle is kind of one of those characters that is very, comedic, is the, lightheartedness, as well as the comedic humor, the comedy, the comedy center for, gosh, I'm trying to remember what the, for comedic effect, there we go. Scuttle's there for comedic effect, so it makes sense to keep Scuttle in there. Sebastian honestly has one of the best songs, actually two of the best songs in all of Disney, period. So I can't really see too much of a reason for them to get rid of Sebastian. And to be honest, he is kind of the voice of reason when it comes to that. So I just don't see them really getting him, written off that easily. So here's probably going to be another deal that a lot of people might hate me, but also, well, we'll see. For me, my version, I would cut out of the movie, or at least lessen the time, Flounder. I know. It's one of those characters that, honestly, looking back into it, he only did like one major thing when you think about it, and that was trying to help Ariel get to the ship. Other than that, he was just kind of there as the scaredy cat friend, not real too much impact in there. So I'm going to actually take that, and maybe Flounder can be introduced into one of the scenes, and maybe it's just one of those things where Ariel's just talking to something like that. And I'm going to give that more time for development given to Ariel's sisters. Now, here's where another thing is probably not going to happen. I don't think I would go as far as to have, I think it was like 5, 6 sisters, something like that. I just don't understand that. That was just too much. So I would probably reduce it down to like 2 or 3 at least. Or if we have to keep all of the sisters, then we're going to at least develop a relationship between Ariel and one of the sisters. I would definitely have it be the older one, because she is kind of acting like that, voice of reason, but she's also understanding of why Ariel is doing these things. She's young, she's curious, she wants to kind of see things of her own, and she's letting her sister kind of, grow into the woman that she knows that she can become. It's kind of one of those things where she is supporting her, even if their father is not going to approve of it. And it just would make more sense, because then you're really just establishing more of that connection again with the family. You're building that up more. You're just making it so very special. You're definitely adding more connection to the family itself. That is something that I think would really make for a great movie, and that's something you just don't see too much with, with a lot of these movies, is that they don't connect with families that much. We need to really have that. To be honest, the only sister pair that we would have to talk about is Anna and Elsa. Why not have, the Little Mermaid and the sisters, be one of those kind of categories where they have a good relationship with sister and sister. Why not? It's crazy, but it just might work. Definitely, I would incorporate some of the songs into the movie, because you gotta have some of that Disney charm, and to be honest, build it the right way, and it's gonna look so good. I mean, can you imagine just having Under the Sea looking just as beautiful as it could be with CGI animation? Oh, that would just be great. Kiss the Girl, that would be another great one to have in there. Having I think that having one of Eric's songs from the Broadway musical would probably benefit him more, and also give him a little bit more time on screen, to where you can kind of develop him as a character, not just one of those characters that, just kind of shows up as a pretty face, and then, hey, this is what we have to deal with. Now, honestly, compared to certain other princes, he definitely does get some action scenes in there, and I kind of would love to see that more and just continue. But I also will say this, that one of the things that I would love to see is having the climax between Ariel and Ursula happen, where it's not Eric who defeats Ursula, it's Ariel. It's kind of one of those moments where Ursula's at her final moments, and Ariel is just about ready to enter the final strike, and this is where Ursula was just saying, and maybe she can be just very vindicative. She can definitely have that kind of manipulative deal where she's just saying, you wouldn't hurt your auntie, would you? You wouldn't do that to your own family. And this is kind of one of those moments where Ariel, she kind of hesitates a little bit, but in the end, she's the one who, destroys Ursula, basically stating, you were family, but then you let revenge, you let evil, you let all of this just overtake you. And that's when you stopped becoming my aunt, and this is when you stopped becoming family. Just having that moment there, oh, would that be so impactful? It would definitely be one of those things where it's just so hard to watch, but at the same time, you just deliver that powerful message where it kind of reminds me of Spider-Man 3, where Aunt May talks to Peter about how vengeance can be just horrible to us. It's like a poison, and it can overtake us and change us into something that we don't want to be. Just having that kind of symbolism put into a Disney movie, ooh, that would just be so good. Now, there is a lot that was covered with this, and the thing is that you could try to cram this in a 2.5-hour movie. I'm not going to. If I was to write this, guys, I would actually do something a bit risky, but at the same time, let's try it, see what happens. And that's why I would actually have this turn into a 2-part movie. Now, I know, it seems a little crazy, but the fact of the matter is that you can definitely get more depth, and you can get so much more going with this movie and really develop so many great characters in this if you split the movies up. I mean, can you imagine what Pirates of the Caribbean would be if they took the second and third movies and they just cut bits and pieces of it, crammed it all together in one movie, where we see, Captain Jack Sparrow, he gets eaten by, the Kraken, and then 5 minutes later he's rescued for the final whirlpool suit, something like that. You have more development. Now, I'm not saying make Little Mermaid into like a 7-part series. No. It's going to be a 2-part series. But if need be, we add a third deal there, and we actually make it into a trilogy. Because maybe there's some loose ends that people could be pointing out. Like, hey, why didn't we see, this character pop up? Or, hey, what happens with, Ariel and Eric? Do they, finally tie the knot or something like that? Just really, again, it's all about creating great characters, a wonderful story. It's all about really creating something that may be different, but at the same time you have the same charm that you would get if it were like the regular Disney movie. Now, I also do want to mention this. Don't do what Lion King did. Don't have them just like straight-faced, actual creature kind of deal. Definitely make the characters bright and colorful if you can. Make the menacing, villains, a bit darker and definitely more sadistic. Definitely just have fun with it, but just don't make it too silly. You can definitely have some great moments in there, and some of the great moments in The Little Mermaid can be brought into the live-action Mermaid. And some of the stuff, even from the original, could be brought into the Little Mermaid deal. Now, I'm not saying, do what they did and just have Ariel killed off. Oh, no. I think that would scar kids for life, in all honesty. But there are still some things that you could incorporate into the new live-action one that were from the original. You really could do something like that. I mean, to be honest with me, seeing Beauty and the Beast and seeing, that moment where Belle's father is taking a rose to give to Belle, it's one of those things where I was in one of the original screenwrites for Beauty and the Beast, and it was for a play production in my senior year. So when I saw that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. They brought one of the classic moments in. That's great. So have those kind of moments where you do have a few of those fans that are just like, oh my gosh, that's great. They brought that from the original one. Just doing small stuff like that can really make a difference and can really impact somebody in the audience and really make you think, oh wow, they really did their research when it came to this to make this an awesome movie. So I'm hoping that the live action Little Mermaid is awesome. I'm hoping that it's better than what the live action Mulan was, or live action Lady and the Tramp, or just so many other movies. Live action Lion King, no. Just have fun with it, but definitely just do not take away from what people loved about it. Don't make it too realistic, but don't make it too cartoony. There is a perfect balance between there. You just gotta find it. But that has been this edition of Well, That Was Random. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode, guys. Follow me on Twitter at RealFNGame. Be sure to listen into the Game Changer podcast every weekend and listen to this show once every week. And hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to be back with some more random stuff next week. And just reminding you that, hey, be sure to make sure that your wheel of morality is turning, because it will tell you the lesson that you'll be learning.